This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thank you so much for joining us for this first edition of CBN NewsWatch for Thursday, September 19th. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu trailing in the election results and trying to form a national unity government. We're going to have a look at how that's going from Jerusalem. Iran's foreign minister threatens war if Saudi Arabia or the U.S. launches a strike on Iran after Secretary of State Mike Pompeo calls the attack on a major Saudi oil facility an act of war. With radical messages of violence and extremism spreading online, senators in Washington are pressuring social media giants to find a way to cut them back. And the Bible has a profound impact on our culture, including as well. We're going to show you even our clothes. We're going to show you that. All those stories and much more in this edition of CBN NewsWatch. We begin this half hour with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu canceling his planned trip to the United Nations next week following Israeli elections. As the vote counting continues, Netanyahu is slightly behind, but that is not stopping him from pushing ahead and trying to form a national unity government. CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell brings us the story now from Jerusalem.
Netanyahu is calling on Benny Gantz and his blue and white party to join him in forming a national unity government.
Benny, it's on us to form a broad unity government. Today, the nation expects us, both of us, to accept responsibility and work together.
In a video message, Netanyahu said he had met with the other right-wing parties and they would negotiate as a block of seats.
We cannot go to third elections. There's no reason to. I oppose it.
With more than 97% of the votes counted, Gantz's blue and white party is ahead with 33 seats to Netanyahu's Likud at 31. But 12 potential seats on the left are held by the joint list, a combination of Arab parties. They have never been in the government and aren't likely to join this time either.
So if there is a coalition between Blue and White and Likud and Lieberman, of course, you will see major policy differences on issues of state and religion, issue of drafting the ultra-Orthodox to the armies, but you will not see major policy differences on Iran or on Gaza or on the security situation in general.
The election results will be finalized in the next few days. Then the official process of forming the government takes place. That could be a tough challenge, as security issues from Iran to Gaza may take center stage. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
And CBN News senior editor John Wagi is in Jerusalem to help to explain the twists and turns of Israel's election aftermath. So, John, is this bid for unity government a smart one by Netanyahu?
Yes, Ephraim, I think maybe it's the only move by Netanyahu that he can really make right now. I mean, when you add up the totals, he doesn't have enough to get a coalition government on the right. He would have to borrow people on the left and some of the smaller leftist parties, and they're saying nothing doing. So I think it was smart of Netanyahu to get out front on this. And rather than Benny Gantz coming forward with a suggestion like this, Netanyahu beat him to the punch. And on top of that, he's proposing a broad unity government, which means all factors or segments of Jewish society would be involved in it, including the religious parties and people on the right, as well as people on the center left. So it was a pretty timely move, I would say.
Now, so far, the Prime Minister has stayed loyal to the parties on the right. Will that last?
Yes, that's a definitive question. It'll last as long as they are in the preliminary stages of these negotiations, which could drag on for weeks. The parties on the right, he went to them immediately after on election night, and he told us all on election night in the wee hours of Wednesday morning that he had planned to have a government of the right, a Zionist government, a government that stood for the country. And he met almost immediately after election night with his the rightist parties and everything. And so they're staying loyal to him right now, and he's remaining loyal to them. We'll see when he gets with the opposition, if they start the talks with him, we'll see if they say, no, you got to jettison them. That's the first thing you've got to do. That very well may be what they propose. So, but he is staying loyal to the Zionist and the religious parties for the time being.
Now, if the left has a 2-seat lead over Netanyahu's party, how can he argue that he should be the leader of the next government?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. There's a lot of media kind of hubbub about, Netanyahu's losing, and obviously he didn't want the results where he had less seats than another party, but he is in a better shape to form a coalition. And Chris mentioned it in his story that the Arab joint list got 12 seats. Those seats would be folded into a left government headed by Benny Gantz, but you can't have the Arabs. They won't sit with the Israeli government, and the Israeli government can't really afford to have the Arab parties involved in a government. So Benny Gantz actually has fewer numbers to form a coalition than Netanyahu does. And so it's probable still that the president, Reuven Rivlin, will appoint Netanyahu first to form the government and see if he can take a shot at it and make it happen. Netanyahu's attitude right now is, if you want to give Benny Gantz the first chance, then go ahead and do it. Let's all watch him sweat and see if he can make something happen out of this. So it's a rough one.
Indeed it is. So what comes next?
Days and then weeks of negotiations, horse trading, really back and forth on who would be allowed in a government and who wouldn't be. And so it's going to be behind the scenes, but we'll get leaks on what's happening.
All right, CBN News Senior Editor John Wage from Israel, thank you so much for sorting it all out for us. Iran's foreign minister says any Saudi Arabian or U.S. strike on Iran will result in, quote, an all-out war. He made that comment on CNN after Secretary of State Mike Pompeo called the attack on a major Saudi oil facility last weekend an act of war. And he said Iran is behind the attack. But so far, President Donald Trump is holding his fire, stopping short of military response. He has, though, called for increased sanctions against the regime, seeking to build a coalition response to the attack. Pompeo issued the administration's strongest statement yet Wednesday during his trip to Saudi Arabia.
We're blessed that there were no Americans killed in this attack, but anytime you have an act of war of this nature, there's always risk that that could happen.
Saudi Arabia says the drones and missiles came from the north, but has stopped short of saying Iran carried out the attack. President Donald Trump, meanwhile, says he doesn't want war, but all options remain on the table. Iran denies its involvement and has promised to retaliate if the United States does strike. President Trump will deliver an inclusive call to address all form of religious persecution and anti-Semitism at the United Nations next week. He will be hosting and speaking at the Global Call to Protect Religious Freedom Monday. The president has made protecting religious freedom a major priority in his administration. An opinion piece in the Toronto Star newspaper says eating at Chick-fil-A will, quote, increase the suffering of queer kids. Another line from a tweet of the article read, Chick-fil-A has released a poison into the city, and it goes on to criticize the restaurant. Chick-fil-A just opened its first store in Canada earlier this month. About 75 people were protesting the popular chain, either over animal rights or over gay rights, offended by what they describe as Chick-fil-A's alleged stance against LGBTQ rights. They were outnumbered by hundreds of people who lined up overnight to get in first. The father of a little girl with a traumatic brain injury says God is drawing people toward him through her story. Dugan Sherbandi told CBN News his daughter Eva fell from a golf cart and hit her head and was rushed to the hospital and immediately went in for brain surgery. He put out a call for prayer referring to Mark chapter 5, where Jesus healed a dead girl, telling her, get up. And the scripture says she immediately stood up and began to walk. Dugan says despite a grim prognosis, he and his wife Lindsay are speaking life over Ava. He says Ava's name means life, and he doesn't think that was a coincidence. Now, you can find the full story at cbnnews.com, including how Dugan and Lindsay talk about their times of doubt and how they still believe God is able to handle what Lindsay calls their darkest prayers. Coming up, social media has been used for extremists of all kinds who've launched violent attacks. Now, senators in Washington are asking tech giants what they're doing to stop their radical message from getting online.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
It has the power to influence weight loss, boost your immune system, and improve brain function.
We've seen an explosion of data on the role of the gut microbiome in health.
The free Build a Better Gut booklet reveals the latest information about the gut microbiome. You'll discover how your gut affects the rest of your health.
The gut microbiome has been linked to depression and cancer and heart disease.
Learn how to build a stronger, healthier gut.
The microbiome, if it's in good composition, are really protecting us all the time from more invasive things.
Get the Build a Better Gut booklet, free from the Christian Broadcasting Network. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut.
You need to make sure that your microbes are working with you, not against you.
And if you order online, you'll get immediate access to the Build a Better Gut series, a digital copy of the booklet, and related bonus material. Build a Better Gut today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut for your free copy.
Here, we're committed to a heritage of rigorous scholarship dating back over 1,000 years.
And to a faith tradition dating back 1,000 more.
This is how we create a culture of inquiry where no topic is off limits.
And a culture of hope.
Anything's possible!
It's Christian leadership.
And it's changing the world for the better.
It's higher learning.
It's greater knowing.
It's what makes us whole.
It's what makes us Regent.
Senators in Washington were asking questions of social media giants Wednesday, wanting to know what the big tech companies are doing to cut back on extremism and violence finding their way onto websites. CBN News national security correspondent Eric Phillips brings us the story.
Facebook, Twitter, and Google were all represented at the hearing, and so was a leader from the Anti-Defamation League who says that research shows that domestic extremist violence is trending up. And he says white extremists don't have physical training camps like some other terrorists. They do their work online. It was just last month in El Paso, Texas, when we saw social media's influence on a mass shooting. The accused Walmart shooter posted a manifesto online before carrying out the horrific act. Earlier this year, the man who attacked a New Zealand mosque wore a body camera to record the carnage, then posted the video to Facebook, where it was shared to other platforms. Authorities say online ISIS propaganda also affected the Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando.
The online environment today amplifies hateful voices worldwide and facilitates the coordination, recruitment, and propaganda that fuels the extremism that terrorizes our communities.
These senators pushed leaders from Facebook, Twitter, and Google about what they can do to keep hate off of their respective sites and forums. Their answer, relying more on technology to flag extremism or violent content, staffing around the clock in order to identify and respond to imminent threats, and the Global Internet Forum social media partnership designed to counter terrorism by sharing information between the companies.
We're always going to have to evolve to deal with bad actors, but I think on the whole we are doing a better and better job, in part because of this technology sharing, this information sharing.
Still, some say it's not enough.
Even more needs to be done, and it needs to be better.
Others believe the internet is just a symptom, not the problem.
It is our weak gun laws here in the U.S. that allows that hate to become lethal.
Industry leaders insist their first priority is the safety and security of users.
The people that I've hired onto this team have backgrounds in law enforcement, in academia, studying terrorism and radicalization. This is something that people come to work on at Facebook because this is what they care about.
One interesting footnote, a senator asked the social media leaders if they worried about their company's influence on society and especially children. They responded that there are a lot of beneficial and supportive aspects of their platforms and that the good outweighs the bad. In Washington, Eric Phillips, CBN News.
Still ahead, with America's immigration courts heavily backlogged, we're going to hear from a leading conservative commentator with her answer for the best solution to the immigration crisis, and at the same time help people from other countries looking for a better life. Stay with us.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
The backlog at the U.S. Immigration Court now exceeds more than 1 million cases. Trump administration officials blame Congress for failing to fix the failed immigration system. They say immigration courts have more cases right now than they can handle. Conservative author and pundit Michelle Malkin says people with good intentions are actually enabling a worldwide criminal racket in human smuggling. On this week's Global Lane program on the CBN News Channel, she said the best way to help people improve their lives is not through immigration, but by helping them in their home countries.
We are the most generous country in the world when it comes to dispensing that kind of foreign aid to places like Central America and Mexico. But at the same time, if you're undermining that by convincing people to cross our borders and break multiple laws and then not have an orderly immigration system, it doesn't serve anybody very well.
I remember what the late Howard Phillips told me when I first met him in Washington, D.C. back in 1985. He said, follow the money. Now, I know you have followed the money. So who is funding the fight to keep our borders open and transform our nation through mass migration?
That is the fundamental question. And it took me nearly 500 pages, 1,600 plus footnotes, and the documentation of more than 400 individual groups and entities, not only based here in the United States, but really globally. And many of your viewers will be well familiar with the role that the United Nations and transnational organizations like the European Union have played in trying to usurp American sovereignty by undermining our enforcement of immigration laws. Many of your viewers will also be very aware of the very famous, or rather infamous, hedge fund billionaire George Soros, who has spent the last couple of decades building up a massive infrastructure under the umbrella of open society foundations. But I think what may shock your viewers, and it certainly shocked me as I was documenting it in the book, was the extent to which taxpayer funding itself has helped subsidize this network. And in particular, the Refugee Resettlement Program, which is run by the United Nations in conjunction with the State Department, the Health and Human Services Department, and a small coterie of lucrative government contractors, almost exclusively religious nonprofits, I really believe is an eye-opener for people because it totals billions of dollars, unfortunately, to the detriment of our national safety.
And I know sanctuary cities, there are more than 500 of them around the country. Why so many? What's their real purpose? And I think you mentioned Seattle as well.
Oh, yes. And many of these sanctuary cities I've had the unfortunate experience of living in and experiencing. Yes, Seattle. Yes, Portland. More recently in the headlines is Montgomery County, Maryland. And I also was a former resident of this notorious ground zero of the idea of sanctuary spaces, safe spaces for illegal aliens, many of them repeat criminal offenders. The reason why there are so many of them is because of this entire infrastructure trying to undermine local, state, and federal cooperation among law enforcement officials to make sure that if we know somebody is here illegally, if they have been arrested multiple times for everything from drunk driving or mere misdemeanors, all the way up to rape and murder. That's why Montgomery County, Maryland is in the headlines. And I'm on my tour now in the swamp and will be helping hold a rally on the steps of the Montgomery County government complex, where the executive there has declared defiantly that they will not cooperate with ICE agents who are trying to apprehend violent criminals.
And Michelle, I lived in Maryland for a long time when I worked in D.C. and Tacoma Park, Maryland. They allow non-citizens to vote there. Is that correct?
That's right. And that phenomenon, which really was spearheaded in Tacoma Park, Maryland, has spread to other places in the country, some of them not surprising. San Francisco, for example, now allows non-citizens to vote in school board elections. And you can see the ramifications here. What it is the steady blurring of the lines between legal citizens and illegal citizens. And, you know, it's not just native-born Americans that are concerned about these things. I am the child of legal immigrants who came to this country in 1970 from the Philippines. They swore an oath of allegiance to the Constitution and its laws and to help protect our country from all enemies, both foreign and domestic. Fundamentally, if we do not as a country assimilate the massive amounts of people who are coming in here, and if we refuse to be choosy and, yes, discriminating about the people that we bring into this country, then we're not a country at all. We can't promise religious liberty to future generations that come here. We can't promise any liberties at all.
Okay, we could talk to you all day, but we're out of time. The book is Open Borders, Inc. Who is funding America's destruction? Michelle Malkin, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
And you can hear more from Michelle Malkin and from Mike Lindell, the My Pillow guy, tonight on the Global Lane. It's on the CBN News Channel. It begins at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. Coming up, we're going to show you how the Bible's influence has even extended to the clothes we wear as we bring you that story from the first fashion show at the Museum of the Bible in our nation's capital. Stay with us.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com. Want to be a part of a community that inspires your spiritual growth while winning prizes? The all-new MyCBN app. Connect with the community for prayer and encouragement. Track and set spiritual goals. Enjoy conversation starters with friends and family. And collect points to win prizes. The all-new MyCBN app. A great place to belong. Download the app at cbn.com/mobile. Grow, connect, have fun. The all-new MyCBN app.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs, from health to entertainment, you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Check your local listings or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Come home to the sounds of Southern Gospel from CBN Radio. You'll enjoy a rich Southern blend of bluegrass, classic gospel, and Southern gospel favorites like the Gaithers, the Crab Family, and bluegrass sounds like Mountain Faith. So make yourself at home with the all-new CBN Southern Gospel, now available at cbnradio.com.
Get the top political news and analysis from Washington on Faith Nation, tonight at 6 Eastern, only on the CBN News Channel.
Fashion and faith come together for a unique look at how the Bible has influenced the clothes we wear. The inaugural fashion show at the Museum of the Bible is only part of a larger look at the book's impact around the world. Abigail Robertson brings us a front row seat.
Today, the Museum of the Bible hosted its first ever fashion show, a one-of-a-kind event featuring biblically inspired couture and designs. Event producer Linda Coldenhoven told CBN News this has been a dream of hers since before the museum was even finished.
When we came in here, it was strictly stone, well, it was just a stone cement floor and steel beams. I walked into the gathering room and I saw the Capitol right outside where the glass was going to be, and all I could envision was a very long runway.
The sold-out show featured pieces from top designers like Dolce & Gabbana, Versace, and Chanel.
When you think of all of these designers, Versace, Dolce & Gabbana, you really don't think of them as Bible followers. You know, I don't want to be judgmental, but look at the creations that they make that are inspired by the Bible.
Stylist Lauren Rothman also helped select pieces for the show.
I think that the Bible impacts fashion because fashion is based in history, and what was old always becomes new again. And like any other trend, biblically inspired clothing is really something that never goes out of style.
The finale featured a one-of-a-kind dress designed for the museum by Chiara Boni, modeled after the Sistine Chapel.
Watching that and just being inspired by the Sistine Chapel and watching it float down the runway, I thought she looked like an angel.
Many of the gowns in the show are rotated on display year-round on the museum's impact floor. Reporting from the Museum of the Bible, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
And time now for your Thursday Thankful. I hope you'll join me in this prayer of gratitude. God, I am thankful that you are a good, good Father. There is no one like you. With that prayer, I encourage you to make today a thankful Thursday and know walking in gratitude is an attractive posture. Well, that will do it for this first edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel anytime or at cbnnews.com. Also, we'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do that by emailing us. The address is newswatch@cbn.com, or talk to us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hope you'll join us again right here next time. Make it a thankful Thursday. We'll see you right back here same time tomorrow. Goodbye, everybody, and God bless.